3 Formula One World Championships, over 200 Grand Prix starts, a career built on brilliance, bravado, and absolutely zero tolerance for anyone who got in his way. Nelson Piquet said what he thought. He did what he wanted. And he made enemies without losing a single night of sleep over it. But even Piquet, the most unapologetic champion Formula One ever produced, kept certain names locked away until now. Welcome back. Today we're telling a story that Formula One historians have been waiting decades to hear. Nelson Piquet was born on August 17, 1952 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. From the moment he touched a steering wheel, it was clear. This was not a man who would ever finish second quietly. He arrived in Formula One in 1978 with something most drivers never carry onto the grid. Not just talent, not just speed, but an absolute refusal to respect anyone who hadn't earned it in his eyes. 3 world championships, 1981, 1983, and 1987. Each one earned through a combination of raw speed, brutal racecraft, and a psychological warfare that left teammates and rivals completely broken. Piquet didn't just race his competitors. He studied them, he provoked them, he found their weaknesses and exploited every single one, on the track and off it. But behind that calculating mind and that razor-sharp confidence, there were 5 drivers who truly got under his skin. 5 men who pushed Piquet to his absolute limits. 5 rivalries that never healed. Not after retirement, not after decades, not even now at 72 years old. Some of these names will make perfect sense. Others will genuinely shock you. Number 5 on Nelson Piquet's list is someone who shared his garage, his team, and his machinery. Someone who was supposed to be his teammate, but became something much more dangerous than any rival ever could. Nigel Mansell. In 1986 and 1987, Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell were teammates at Williams Racing. Same car, same engine, same resources. On paper, it looked like the perfect partnership. In reality, it was a war zone. Mansell arrived at Williams hungry, aggressive, and completely unwilling to play the supporting role that Piquet believed he deserved as the senior driver. Every single weekend became a battle, not just against other teams, but against each other. At Brands Hatch, Mansell pushed Piquet so hard in qualifying that both drivers were extracting performances the engineers hadn't even calculated. But instead of celebrating that competition, Piquet felt disrespected. A teammate was supposed to support the championship campaign, not sabotage it. Off the track, their personalities clashed constantly. Mansell was emotional, passionate, and wore every feeling openly on his sleeve. Piquet was calculated, cold, and believed emotion had absolutely no place inside a racing garage. Piquet once said privately, racing against Mansell felt less like competition and more like babysitting someone who never learned the rules. That quote said everything. Nigel Mansell was number 5, a teammate who became an enemy. And if a teammate made this list, just imagine what the rivals ahead did. Number 4 is coming, and this one cuts even deeper. Number 4 on Nelson Piquet's list is a name that every Formula One fan knows deeply. A 4-time world champion, the Professor, the most calculated racing mind of his generation. But for Nelson Piquet, he was something else entirely. Alain Prost. Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost never shared the same garage. They never had to, because the tension between them was built entirely on one single thing: pure, burning jealousy of each other's success. Both men dominated Formula One through the same golden era. Both men collected championships. Both men believed, deeply, completely, without any doubt, that they were the greatest driver on the grid. But the sport only had room for one king at a time. At Monaco, Prost navigated the streets with such surgical precision that even Piquet, who rarely complimented anyone, admitted the lap was extraordinary. But that admission came with something sharp underneath it. Because Prost made winning look effortless, graceful, almost artistic, and Piquet absolutely hated that. Piquet was raw aggression wrapped in strategy. Prost was pure intelligence wrapped in silk. Their styles were opposites. Their personalities were opposites. And every championship battle between their respective teams felt like a proxy war between 2 men who genuinely couldn't stand each other. Off the track, Prost's political relationships with team management infuriated Piquet. Prost understood people. He managed egos carefully. He built alliances quietly. Piquet called it manipulation, pure and simple. Alain Prost was number 4, a rival who matched Piquet's intelligence and beat him at his own game. And that, for Nelson Piquet, was completely unforgivable. Number 3 is next, and this rivalry? It got physical. Number 3 on Nelson Piquet's list is perhaps the most iconic name in Formula One history. A driver worshipped by millions. A legend whose memory still brings grown men to tears decades later. But for Nelson Piquet, he was the one rival who made every single race feel like a personal attack. Ayrton Senna. Nelson Piquet and Ayrton Senna shared something beyond rivalry on the racetrack. They shared a nation, both Brazilian, both carrying the weight of an entire country's passion on their shoulders every single Grand Prix weekend. Both believing, with absolute certainty, that they were the greatest driver Brazil had ever produced. But only one could wear that crown. At Rio de Janeiro, racing in front of their home crowd, the tension between them was visible before a single wheel even turned. Senna qualified on pole. Piquet pushed back harder than anyone expected. The battle between them that weekend wasn't just about championship points, it was about national pride, about legacy, about which Brazilian name would echo through history the loudest. Off the track, Senna's deeply spiritual personality clashed violently with Piquet's sharp, cynical worldview. Senna spoke about destiny, about God, about racing as something sacred and beautiful. Piquet found every word of it completely insufferable. He once said, Senna treated Formula One like a religion. Piquet treated it like a war. And those two things could never exist peacefully in the same paddock. Ayrton Senna was number 3. A countryman who became a competitor, and a competitor who became something Piquet could never fully defeat. Not on the track, not in the media, not in the hearts of their people. Number 2 is coming, and this rivalry ran deeper than any championship ever could. Number 2 on Nelson Piquet's list is a man whose story is already the stuff of legend. A survivor, a champion, a man who walked through fire, literally, and came back stronger. But for Nelson Piquet, Niki Lauda represented something that went far beyond respect or rivalry. Niki Lauda. Niki Lauda was everything Nelson Piquet understood deeply. Calculated, cold, ruthlessly efficient. A driver who stripped every unnecessary emotion out of racing and treated each Grand Prix like a precise mathematical problem to be solved. In many ways, they were the same man. And that was exactly the problem. Because when two drivers share the same DNA of coldness and calculation, there is no room for mutual respect. There is only competition, raw, unfiltered, and completely personal. At Brabham, Piquet watched Lauda operate with a quiet authority that infuriated him. Lauda didn't need to shout. He didn't need to intimidate. He simply walked into every room like the decisions had already been made, and everyone else was just catching up. Piquet found that absolutely unbearable. On the track, their battles were chess matches wrapped inside 200 miles per hour machinery. Every move deliberate, every position defended with surgical precision. Neither man willing to give a single millimeter without extracting something in return. But off the track, Lauda's relationship with team management and sponsors gave him influence that Piquet believed he had earned but never fully received. Lauda played the political game masterfully, quietly, invisibly. And Piquet, who preferred direct confrontation over silent maneuvering seconds, never forgave him for winning that battle so effortlessly. Niki Lauda was number 2, a mirror image of Piquet himself. And sometimes the person you hate most is the person who reminds you of everything you see in yourself. Number 1 is next, the name that sat at the very top of Piquet's list for decades. And when you hear it, everything will finally make sense. We have finally reached number 1. The driver who stayed on Nelson Piquet's mind longer than any championship, longer than any rivalry, longer than any battle on any racetrack anywhere in the world. This is the name Piquet never forgot. Carlos Reutemann. Carlos Reutemann never won a Formula One World Championship. And for Nelson Piquet, that fact made everything worse. Because Reutemann should have won. He had the talent. He had the machinery. He had every single ingredient required to become a champion. But in 1981, the year that defined both their careers forever, Reutemann collapsed under pressure at the final race in Las Vegas, and Nelson Piquet walked away with the championship by just one single point. 1 point. But here is what nobody talks about. Piquet never felt satisfied about that victory. Because beating a man who quit on himself, who had the championship within his grasp and let it slip away, felt hollow, empty, like winning an argument against someone who simply stopped talking. Piquet wanted to defeat Reutman at his absolute best. He wanted to crush him completely, fairly, and without any doubt. Instead, Reutman handed him the crown. Senna and Piquet spent decades quietly furious about it. Off the track, Reutman's quiet dignity and widespread respect throughout the paddock irritated Piquet deeply. Here was a man who never won the ultimate prize, yet carried himself like he had won everything that truly mattered. For Piquet, that was the most infuriating thing of all. Carlos Reutman never beat Nelson Piquet for the championship, but he lived inside Piquet's head for over 40 years. And sometimes, that is the greatest victory of all. Nelson Piquet spent his entire career refusing to apologize for who he was. 3 world championships, hundreds of battles, thousands of miles of pure unfiltered competition. Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, Niki Lauda, Carlos Reutman. 5 drivers, 5 rivalries. So 5 names that never left his mind. Not after retirement, not after decades, not even now at 72 years old. But here is the truth that makes this story so powerful. Without these men, without that burning hatred, that fierce competition, that refusal to back down, Nelson Piquet would never have become the champion history remembers today. Rivalry doesn't weaken greatness, it builds it. At 72, Piquet finally told his truth. And now, you know the full story. If this video moved you, like, comment, and subscribe. More untold Formula One stories are coming. See you in the next one.